Hello, welcome to the Thanx Road to Revenue webinar series. Topic today is generating restaurant revenue from mobile, how Tommy Bahama turned mobile into a revenue generating machine. I'm here with my guest, Rob Goldberg from Tommy Bahama, and excited to introduce Rob. But thank you everyone for being here today. We like to keep these webinars short and sweet, so we'll be about 20 minutes. Very little material, mostly just discussion with Rob, who's a great restaurant executive and running a really exciting, expanding brand across the country. So as a quick intro, I'm Zach Goldstein. I'm the CEO and founder of Thanx. We'll give you a quick introduction to what is Thanx for those of you that don't know. But Rob, why don't I let you kick off and introduce yourself and Tommy Bahama.
Terrific. Thanks, Zach. My name is Rob Goldberg. I'm the EVP of Restaurants, Bars, and Food Concepts at Tommy Bahama. Tommy Bahama is a lifestyle brand. A lot of people know us for retail apparel, but we also have a number of different other divisions like furniture and some food products and some other things. But what a lot of people don't know is that we have 18 restaurants from Florida to Hawaii to the desert to New York City, scattered around the country, mostly in resort areas that are a companion to the retail experience. So they're generally side by side, full service restaurants with a price point of somewhere in the 60s, depending on the market, for dinner per person check average, and 40s in the daytime I'm listening. all my devices are going off at once. We've also developed a new concept that is a more fast casual, quick serve concept with a bar. So imagine a bar that's got a patio that is integrated into a retail store, and then imagine we pulled a food truck up next to it, and that's kind of the style of food. We do a lot of tacos and bowls, and but cocktails are definitely central to the experience in both concepts. We had implemented Thanx this past year, and we've had a lot of success with it, and so we're excited to talk about it today.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Rob. And Rob and I were just before this having a conversation about just a lot of the broader trends in the industry. So we'll spend time talking about that as well. I'll give you a quick walkthrough of some of the things that we're seeing around the concept of mobile and mobile apps in the restaurant industry, and then a very brief intro to Thanx, and then we'll kick off a discussion with Rob. In the restaurant world, everyone knows of the Starbucks app and some of the other leading apps like the Chick-fil-A app. And these have set the tone for consumer experiences. And I like to remind people in the restaurant space that Starbucks has an advantage. They have a chemically addictive product. No wonder people use their app every day. Not every restaurant has that advantage. And so it's really challenging to build a mobile strategy that works. We know the success story. They're doing a great job tying loyalty directly into their mobile application. And really what we're seeing, whether it's public reports from Starbucks or from Domino's, is that personalization and loyalty and nailing off-premise are two massive themes that are defining success across the restaurant industry. When it comes to mobile, most businesses are not doing what Starbucks is doing. They're falling short. The average across 150 restaurant apps that we sampled was 2.9 stars. And the comments from consumers are the types of things that you would be very scared if you saw them on your Yelp reviews. This also reflects against a restaurant's brand. And it matters because there are so many apps and there are so many reasons why businesses are churning or consumers are churning from those apps. A bad experience takes away from the brand. And there's so many people competing for that attention. And so what we have here are 5 tips for mobile success that I thought are useful. And we're only going to talk about one of them today, but I'll walk you through all 5. Start with your top customers. Don't rush to building everything into a native application. Mobile web accomplishes a lot of what you need consumers to do on their phone. Do utilize unique app-only technology such as location services in ways that make it worthwhile to have your app as opposed to your mobile web experience. Complement existing behaviors instead of forcing new ones. And keep it simple. People try to jam a bunch of stuff into their mobile experience and then they wonder why consumers stop using it. Keep it simple, understand the goal. So today we're going to talk about starting with your top customers. First of all, the 80-20 rule is real in the restaurant space. Our analysis shows about 70% of revenue comes from the top 20 to 25% of customers for restaurants. You need to know who those 20 to 25% are and build personal relationships with them. And when you do it, you can drive revenue from those interactions. It's about 7 times more cost effective to get an incremental visit from existing customers. But the problem is most restaurants, the executive team looks out and sees this, an anonymous sea of customers. And what we want them to see is this, personally identifiable customers that you know everything about, and you can build unique relationships with those people. So we'll talk about that today. Quick overview of what Thanx is and why we're experts in this space. We talk about making customer engagement easy. It's about insights, customer loyalty, campaigns, customer feedback, and revenue reporting. Insights is about knowing who your VIPs are so you can engage with them personally. Loyalty is about not just delivering basic rewards, but actually things like tiers and status and surprise and delights, true things that engender loyalty, not just rewards. Campaigns are about being able to talk to certain segments of customers and understanding personally who responded and did they come in and make a purchase, as opposed to things like opens and clicks, which don't really equate to revenue. Customer feedback is about identifying in a private channel your happy and unhappy customers and being able to engage with them personally. And revenue reporting is what matters at the end of the day. If you're running a marketing initiative and the ROI is negative, obviously you would stop doing it. If you're running a marketing initiative and the ROI is positive, you should spend more money. Most marketing initiatives fall into the middle, the question mark. And the bad news, unfortunately, is if you have a question mark marketing initiative, it's probably losing you money. You should figure out what the answer is. So that's the brief intro. Like I said, I'll keep it short. We're talking about Tommy Bahama today, restaurants all across the country, and some really exciting footprints, some in cities, some in vacation areas. And so we'll let Rob do the talking, but Thanx obviously built the Tommy Bahama loyalty program called the Tommy Bahama Island Club. We and Tommy Bahama are proud that this app has a 4.9 star rating in all the app stores. Consumers enjoy it, and it's because they're getting recognized and rewarded for being great Tommy Bahama customers. So, Rob, once again, thanks for joining, and we'll kick off the conversation. As you think about your concept, one of the things we were talking about right before this is the difference in the types of customers you have going to your concepts, and even at the same location, the difference between someone that stops by for a cocktail after shopping and someone that regularly comes for dinner with their family is huge in terms of lifetime value. Give us the lay of the land, if you will, on those different types of customers and how you think about them.
Right, you're 100% right there, Zach. There's such a broad range of consumers that we're serving. And I'll throw in another one. We do a number of a lot of business with seasonal guests. So if you think about the markets we're operating in Florida, Scottsdale, Las Vegas, Palm Desert, Palm Springs, Hawaii, we have people like from Canada, from the Midwest, from the Northeast that will come into that market for 3 months, and then they're gone. So the app really gives us some sense of migration as well, of where people are coming from. That gives us insights into like more sort of surgical targeting with marketing efforts. But depending on the market, so in New York City, it's a business crowd. there at lunch and happy hour. It's more visitors in the evening and in that second tier of dining in the evening. In Naples, it's a full service, more community-based one where we have regular guests in that seasonal environment. In our more light concept in the Marlin Bar, is lots of locals. This app, one thing that really surprised us was we have a tiny operation in this Marlin Bar operation in Coconut Point, which is much smaller than any of our operations. However, the use of Thanx and the loyalty app is usually either number one or number two in terms of population and usage and so on, because the clientele is so locally driven, and the staff has gotten to know them so well that they can really understand preferences and who they are and what they think about us. And I'll throw in one last piece is the folks in Hawaii, where they might not be local, but they are regular. They might be regular in another one of our restaurants, so we can see where they're from and what they're doing in other restaurants away from their home restaurant in Hawaii. And so, whereas we don't have as many local loyalty members in Hawaii, we do get a lot of usage there from our other stores where we do have loyalty more firmly entrenched.
This is one of the ways loyalty, quote unquote, is a hard thing to define. How do you increase your brand loyalty? One of the ways to quantify it is how many of your customers visit multiple locations. And that's a particularly good measure of brand loyalty when your locations are spread out, because it means that when they arrived in a new destination, they sought you out. And so that's exciting to be able to track and see. I think one of the things that's so fascinating about your opportunity is you're attached in some cases physically, but certainly by a parent company to the large Tommy Bahama retail operation, and they've been operating in a world with a lot of data for a long time. What do you think they do incredibly well that you either are now starting to do as you have access to customer data, or aspire to as you can build more kind of personal relationships with your best customers?
Yeah, well, we've always been jealous of our retail partners as they have just a different way to capture the guest. So it's just a more, so when a guest is checking out in retail, the sales associate will ask them, are you a member of our registry? And then they attach that sale to their it's their folio that's in our CRM system. And so as such, we can really look at that CRM data and say, we can start segmenting customers into different places in the marketing chain, where we might do it by preference. We might, in terms of product, we might do it in terms of geography, we might do it in terms of spend, etc. But the restaurant, we've always felt like it was really cumbersome and really kind of clunky and not very elegant to try and capture that data with a guest. And so what the Thanx app did for us was it allowed us to do it seamlessly, so that we don't even have to ask the guest for anything. It's just because it's tokenized and attached to a credit card. They just need to use that card, and we'll get the data. And so now we have this a much better view, and now actually a 360 view of a guest, because we can also attach it to that CRM file, and we actually have this data to look at. So now we can have a much more rounded look at who a lunch guest is, who a happy hour guest is, who likes Pinot Noir, who likes different cocktail genres. And put them into different personas that we can market to, because when we're talking about specific things, it's much better to go out to that specific group that has interest in it, or maybe a group that has had no interest in it that you want to have interest in it. You don't want to bother somebody who's already going to your happy hour 3 days a week with a happy hour message. I'd rather get somebody who isn't coming to happy hour and try and move them along into happy hour.
That's exactly right. And consumers have the same experience, which is they no longer respond to generic messages that had no relevance to them, right? The days of just blast out the same promotion to everyone you know and hope that people respond are gone, because if you look at how Gmail is sorting things now, there's a promotions tab. People don't even see that stuff unless something about it resonates as personal. And so there's a lot of question about, well, how does this benefit the consumer? And when you talk to consumers, it's a massive benefit because they stop getting stuff that they just don't care about. It's the same way that you would have a personal relationship between an A+ manager and a regular guest. Same type of communication.
Yeah, and that A+ guest as well. Just being able to identify them is a key. Where you were talking about that 80-20 rule, where we had, previously, we did a really good job of doing it sort of manually but it more relied on kind of tribal knowledge that would get passed on from one manager to another, and they'd say, oh, that's Zach, he's a great customer. If that manager's gone, then your whole system is gone, and there's no redundancy, and there's no, you have to start over again. So what this does, it allows us to really get granular down to the specific guest, and you were talking about the relevance too, where that's another thing our retail partners have done really well, where they'll segment email where I might not be the right consumer for women's swim, and my wife might not be the right consumer for men's polos. So don't send her that, or don't send me women's swim. Get it right from the beginning, and you'll have far less people unsubscribe and tune out of your message, just because if you show them enough irrelevant messages, they're just going to tune you out. And spam filters are so good now that they'll just leave you in that filter and never pull you out. And that is another key, I think, to the app, as well as just the push notification, which I think sets it apart from an email. And it's also a notification that is tied to something they enjoy, which are rewards. And so the push notification allows us to sort of stay relevant on their phone as well, because we all know that you got to be a useful app to not make to make the cut when somebody starts cleaning things up on their phone. So it's a great way to talk to the customer in a way that they want to be talked to, and that the messages can be really personalized. And we had a friends and family event last week that we pushed to our whole population, and we've only been doing this loyalty program less than a year now, but there's a population of over 25,000 people that have signed up, and out of those 25,000 people, over 14,000 opened that message of, hey, it's friends and family, there's 25% off, we're celebrating, come have dinner, or come have a cocktail, and enjoy 25% off in retail. To get an open rate of north of 50% these days is astronomical. We don't see that kind of open rate in email, but when it's coming from we're very careful about how we push and what we push out. We reserve it for the stuff we think they're going to open, and so we save it for those moments. But the app has given us that kind of credibility with the customer, that they know it's something they want to see because they've already raised their hand and said, I want to see it.
Yep, and these are customers that are generally overall higher lifetime value. They make up a huge portion of that 80-20 population, and so to be able to drive incrementality out of them is really a big deal. And I think one of the things that we pride ourselves on, well, two of the things that you mentioned. One is that not only can you measure how many people opened that email and saw it, but how many of those walked in the door and made a purchase. And that's something that we show very clearly on all of the campaigns, because that's what we want you to eventually have access to, is like, oh, this campaign drove X amount in revenue. it makes every restaurant executive's life easier if you know when you ran a campaign, did it actually drive incremental revenue or not? And then the second thing that you mentioned is kind of the ease of use, which has been a focus for us. I think one of the reasons that a lot of restaurant apps get such bad ratings is because they're kind of a pain to use. You got to get out your phone kind of every time you make a purchase and take an action of some kind. And consumers forget to, and then they're frustrated that they forgot the last time they were there and didn't get progress. It's there's friction, and so this we see very clearly by making that process simple. The consumer can even forget they have the app on their phone, but when they make a purchase, they get a notification seconds later that says they're earning rewards. It's a delightful moment that has no effort, and that's what keeps customers, really engaged.
As it relates to one thing that can't be understated is, when we were first considering this, I remember talking to our IT partners, and they were like, man, we do not have the bandwidth to implement a loyalty system, and a CRM system for you. Like we're overtasked as it is. And I had a hard time convincing them that, like, no, really, we don't need you guys for this. This is totally turnkey. And to this day, we laugh a little bit about, their worry over, what kind of resources this was going to demand from IT, and it really didn't. It's all, it doesn't touch the system. It all sits with the credit card company, and it's real data, real time. The feedback comes through the app. It comes through and sits on the platform. So it really we didn't really have to do any like major integrations or anything to get it. And the other piece of the loop is the feedback, where, when you think about the restaurant industry right now and how fast it's moving from, just a really demanding environment where there's a lot of cost pressures, and you sort of have to get it right. If you're going to place bets on, which direction to move, it really helps to have feedback. And, on a daily basis, we get dozens and sometimes hundreds of reviews, because when people get up from their meal and Thanx says, hey, rate your meal, we get really specific information, and we can have a dialogue with our guest and or fix problems immediately. It's different than reading a Yelp review where you're apologizing or you're thanking them for their feedback, but you don't have the ability to drop $25 into their account to use and as a reward, and this does. So it really does have a sort of a full approach to understanding the feedback and then rewarding the feedback, and taking action on all the stuff you're learning from your guests directly in real time.
Yep, absolutely, and I think that private channel matters. The anonymity of Yelp can sometimes frustrate operators. To know who this person is and when they visited and what they spend gives you a lot more understanding, context around that feedback. So we'll kind of wrap up with maybe a more broad topic around the industry, right? There is margin pressure from third-party delivery. There is cost pressure from minimum wage implications. Traffic, in the last month, industry-wide declined for the first time in the last 9 months, and so that's a further challenge. I mean, it's clear that revenue growth in the restaurant industry is going to be a key factor because of all these other pressures. What are some of the things that you're thinking about, and what are some of the uncertainties that you have amid that landscape that are still to be solved?
Yeah, well, I would say in my 35 years of being in the business, I've never seen a more disruptive time than in the last 5 or 10 years to the industry, where things are moving really fast, preferences are changing quickly. I watch my kids. One of them's in their 20s and one of them's a teenager, and I've watched them move from, like, they have no interest in a 3-course dinner. They would much rather have something fast and or something related to the bar. And so, you have to be able to be nimble and respond to these kinds of demands from the consumers. And I think for us, it's been about developing an emotional connection with the guest. I think we try to keep away from food being a commodity or beverage being a commodity or experience being a commodity, because it's got to mean more. Now, luckily, we do operate in a lot of exotic places. Like it's easier to develop an emotional connection in Maui or the Big Island or Naples, Florida, or but we have locations in more traditional areas like the Woodlands, Texas, or Scottsdale, or in sort of bigger, more developed markets. Something like Thanx helps us keep that emotional connection alive, where they can see rewards coming, they can understand their own behavior, and we can understand their behavior, and it helps inform, what our next moves are to stay relevant and stay current, because it does require kind of a multi-pronged approach. When we're looking at food now, we're looking at the visual side much harder, just because we know how important Instagram is, for example.
Right.
So we want to stress that we're developing food that we think is photogenic, that people will want to take a picture of. We will court. We do a lot of events for elite Yelpers, and we'll have 100 elite Yelpers in from a market and have them do action stations and cocktail stations, and so for us, it's about not only delivering on the experience, but staying in touch, which is something we didn't have before we put this loyalty program in place. We just sort of relied on we hoped that they were somehow in our CRM via retail. And then we weren't sure who the restaurant guests were to begin with. So now we know who they are and what they spend, and it's a huge advantage where we know exactly who wants to hear what, and what they might be interested in. The industry really is, you think about all the margin pressures we're under now with minimum wage and all of the other major cost categories are all pressured, along with the expectation of consumer that, because we're competing with grocery stores now, and with, to-go services and virtual restaurants that don't even exist. In order, they're like these, phantom restaurants that food gets somehow mysteriously into a car and then delivered to their home. So, and then throw in all of the other delivery services of, Blue Apron and Munchery and, the stuff where you're cooking at home as well. So there's so many choices for the consumer that there's just, you want to be able to get to the top of the heap and stay relevant. And so whatever we do, we want to sort of communicate our brand and our point of view, which is this relaxed lifestyle that we encourage people to slow down and smell the roses and have a cocktail and spend some time with friends. And that idea really actually translates into an app where people can see it. And we're talking a lot about how to develop more content on our app and different promotions. You were talking about going to how, where they're going to multiple locations. Is there a passport application we could put into our app? Are there things like that we can do? So we're just getting started, and we're really excited about bringing it to life even further for our guests.
Great. Well, Rob, I want to thank you for joining us today, and encourage everyone that listens to the webinar to check out your nearest Tommy Bahama location and download the Island Club app, and go have a great experience and slow down and enjoy the experience at the Tommy Bahama restaurants. So, Rob, pleasure talking, and thanks for the time.
Great. Thank you, Zach.